Hi guys, it's Morgan with BDSM Relationships and Education. Today we are going to try out a new series called Kinky History, and I'm going to ask what you guys think of it in the comments below and in a little poll that will pop up about halfway through this video. So let me know if you enjoy this video and this idea. If you do, we will do more of them. So today we are going to talk about the man that is often credited as the father of modern SM, who is Marquis de Sade. So a little something that you guys don't know about me, or probably don't know about me, is that I went to university before I went to college, and I got a degree, a double major in philosophy and anthropology. So I've known about Marquis de Sade for a long time, both through my contact with the Kink community and through my studies of philosophy at a university level. So the question we're going to ask today is, should the Marquis de Sade be someone that we in the Kink community look up to? Because I know that that's something that a lot of people do. They think that he's really kind of cool. They saw quills or, read a few things about him. Or should we look at him as a philosopher and a revolutionary? Or is he and I'm going to get in trouble if I say these words on camera, so we're just going to point at them. So you'll have to excuse me if this is a little awkward, because I don't want to, get this video banned, because YouTube has really been cracking down on a lot of this stuff. So we are just going to, so I have my handy dandy crop. We're going to say, is he and there we go. All right, I have a whole bunch of notes here because I want to get all the facts straight. So, the Marquis de Sade, which is a hereditary title, his family alternated with, I don't know how to say it in French, but it basically is Count. So there's a lovely picture of him that my boy did, and I'll just throw it out there that you should follow him on Instagram. But anyways, Marquis de Sade was born Donatin Alphonse Francois on June 2nd of 1940. He then later died on December 2nd of 1814, so he led a very long and fairly depraved life. We're going to look at some of the highlights. He was a French nobleman, a politician, a philosopher, and a writer. He was best known for his erotic works, although he does have a whole lot of other works that were lesser known. And part of the reason that they were lesser known is that after his death, a lot of the works were destroyed by both his family and the state, for reasons that we will discover as we go along. He was also, of course, known for his both violent fantasies and violent actions, mostly against women and children, but also against pretty much anyone that entered into his life. And of course, the church went after him for his blasphemy as well. When it comes to philosophy, the Marquis de Sade was a proponent of absolute freedom, and this meant freedom from morality in general, freedom from the oppression of the church, which again is, very different than the church today. The church back in his times and even before had way, way more power over people's lives, and they could ruin you with an accusation of blasphemy, depending on your station in life. Obviously, the noble class had, more advantages and were less likely to be taken down by such accusations, but it certainly was possible. In total, he spent 32 years in both prisons and various asylums throughout France, and I think it was mostly in France, actually, that he was in prison and asylum. He ran to Germany and a few other countries to escape jail time, but he was, locked up for 32 years, and I believe, 1740 to 1814, so he was 74 years old, so that's nearly half of his life in various prisons and asylums. He did, in fact, die in an asylum. So when we're going through this, because, there is a lot, 74 years of life, famous nobleman, there's a lot going on here. So we're going to skip over a lot of his political views and his philosophical works, as much as I would like to delve deeper into those things. I don't need, a 3-hour video lecture for you guys. So we are going to take a look at some of the highlights that pertain to why he got his reputation and why the word sadism is, taken from his name. So his first big scandal was Easter in 1768. I don't know why I keep wanting to say 1768, a few hundred years prior. And in this particular thing, he hired a beggar woman that he encountered on the street with the impression that she would be working for him as a maid. Now, when she got to his house, showed up to work, he at some point tied her to a bed, whipped her, and did other things. She accused him of cutting her skin with a knife and pouring hot wax. He denied this and said that after he whipped her, he applied some kind of ointment, and that must be what she thought it was. I mean, I don't know that makes it any better that he didn't, cut her and pour wax on her, and it's all allegations anyways. She managed to finally escape out of a second floor window, so you can tell that, it's probably not consensual in any way when somebody jumps out of a second floor window to get away from you. Of course, she was paid off to keep quiet and to make this whole scandal go away. But this was sort of the beginning point this is where we start really going downhill, is what I'm trying to say. So in 1772, he was accused of assaulting 4 prostitutes and his manservant. He apparently fed them Spanish fly, which is an old aphrodisiac, which also happens to be a poison. It can kill you in high enough doses. So he was accused of assault against them, of a sexual nature. There were no details on that, plus I probably wouldn't want to share them anyways. But it was apparently a violent sexual assault on these 4 women and the man that worked for him. So you can see that he isn't discerning here necessarily. He's, just happy to assault anyone, pretty much. Just for shits and giggles, his wife decided to join in on the fun at some point, and we know that she was absolutely complicit in a lot of what he chose to do, whether she was an active participant or not. Later on in 1774, he basically kidnapped 6 children. He held them hostage for 6 weeks and sexually assaulted them as well. So here is where we get this part of my question. Throughout the years, many of his young servants left, complaining of both sexual and physical abuse. This was a fairly common thing. He gained quite the reputation amongst the serving class, so that people did not want to go and work for him, which was part of why that he needed to hire like a beggar woman and other people that wouldn't be missed. Another incident was in 1777, where the father of one of the servants who worked for Sade showed up trying to get his daughter back because, from the sounds of things, she was being held against her will. The father attempted to shoot Sade, and the gun jammed, so he wasn't able to do so. But that sort of, I think, goes to show the extremes that people were willing to go to. We have to remember that people had different values back then. And I think that, a certain amount of abuse when you were working for a noble person was sort of to be expected. But this father felt strongly enough that what was going on was unfair to his daughter or inappropriate, that he was willing to murder for it. Now, by this point, he had fled the country because the French authorities were trying to arrest him because, he was kind of a horrible guy. We have to remember, too, this was pre-revolutionary France, so it was really difficult to earn a bad reputation as a noble person in this time. The nobles were fairly notorious for being fairly awful, hence the revolution. Or at least part of the reason for the revolution. We're not going to get into all of that history, too. But yes, there were many reasons for the revolution, and this happens to be one of them. Then in 1778, he was tricked into going back to Paris. They claimed that his mother was ill and needed to see him. In truth, she had actually died a few weeks prior. He was then arrested and handed a death sentence. Of course, he got out of that because we know that he didn't die until 1814. Basically, his family money and status were what saved him. He was imprisoned, however, and remained there for quite some time. I should also mention that he was at this point imprisoned at Bastille, which is a famous French prison. We then fast forward to 1784, where he wrote in prison one of his most famous works, 120 Days of Sodom. And so this is the one that many, many people will reference. If you want to check it out, I will leave links below. Now, the storming of Bastille was a big part of the French Revolution. There was a lot of political prisoners kept there. The Marquis de Sade was transferred out of Bastille about 10 days before the storming of Bastille. So I don't know if there was something going on there or what the deal was, but it's a little suspicious, especially considering what sort of comes next. He, at that point, hid this work, this 120 Days of Sodom. So it was assumed that this work was destroyed when the prison was also destroyed. I believe it was a fire during the Revolution. But what had happened is that somebody, that I guess was a fan or something, had removed the work. They found it and they took it out 2 days before the event. So it was actually saved. In 1790, Sade was released from prison and then elected to the National Convention, which was the government that took over after the Revolution. He spent the next 11 years relatively quiet. We don't have a whole lot of, there's, political stuff and what have you that was going on, but I don't have any big scandals or anything that came to light. Although in 1901, he was arrested by Napoleon for his work Justine and Juliet, which was an erotic fantasy. You can understand that, portrayals of lesbianism were considered to be rather blasphemous back then. So there was some problems with that. I believe Justine and Juliet is another one of his sort of bigger, well-known works. I haven't read it myself because I don't care for his work. Then, while he was in jail, he was allowed to continue writing and putting on plays, even with other prisoners. These were all very erotic in nature, and he got in trouble for it eventually, as did the guy running the jail that allowed this, or I think it was an asylum, that was allowing all of this to go on. He also, while he was in the asylum, tried to seduce a lot of the younger, captives there. In 1803, he was officially declared insane, which I'm sorry to, use that word, but that is sort of the historical context of it. Of course, having money and power and all of that really serves one well because his mistress was allowed to come and live with him in the asylum. Of course, that only lasted for a short time because in 1809, he was put into solitary confinement because somebody else took over and was like, "You're living with your mistress in the asylum? Nuh-uh." And this was, of course, because of the writing and the plays and the seducing of young people and all sorts of things that he was going on about. In 1810, this is the final scandal of our bunch, he began an affair with a 14-year-old daughter of an employee at the asylum. Just going to keep pointing at it. And that continued until his death 4 years later. All right, so let's take a look at Sade's influence on modern culture. Sexual sadism disorder was named for Sade. Now, they do make a point of saying that this is distinct from consensual BDSM practices. This disorder generally refers to people who are and do things non-consensually in a sadistic manner. So it is not the same way that we use sadist or sadism within BDSM. Sade had a lot of influence over other philosophers and writers of the time, both contemporaries and those that came after him. It's been said numerous times that Sade's philosophy of absolute freedom and being free of all these various constraints is sort of the categorial imperative taken to an extreme. And I just had to show off my big Workbook here. Another person that was notably influenced by Sade is Nietzsche. There's a few others, and they generally tend to be the nihilists. For anyone familiar with Foucault, he was also influenced and generally terrible. Another absolutely cheery person who was influenced by Sade, although he apparently didn't know very much about him, he just sort of liked, again, this romanticized idea that we have of the Marquis de Sade, is serial killer Ian Brady, known for the Moors murders, which happened in the 1960s. So you can see all kinds of lovely, lovely people were influenced by his works. So I asked the question when we first started here, is Sade a philosopher and revolutionary, or is he, or? And in this case, I think that we do need to embrace the power of and. Because he is all of these things and more. Anyways, guys, thank you so much for checking out this video about the Marquis de Sade. Please leave me your thoughts down below and let me know if you like this series. We're going to, if we continue it, we will look at all kinds of different people, contemporary and historical, that were said to be kinky or that had some kind of influence on kink in general. So we can look at people who are, notably kinky, and others that are rumored to have been kinky, or other people that had influence on our community, but never wanted to be a part of it in the first place. So we've got a lot of ideas going on. Sorry, when I say we, I've been brainstorming with Sage a lot about this. So let me know if there's somebody that you would like me to profile. I wanted to start with the big one here. So I hope you enjoyed it, and I will see you guys in the next video.